Hey everyone. Having been asked to make the pressure washer available for use and taking it out of the shed, it's been well over a year. I realized that the last time I had loaned this out, I did not drain the gas upon having it returned. And this is a common story. It was in opening this here gas cap and immediately taking a whiff. I knew that I was in trouble. What we're going to do is go through this common scenario. This could be a pressure washer, this could be a snow blower, this could be a lawn tractor, this could be any type of device where you have this situation, getting this thing back in operating order. Somebody could make the argument that you could just fill it with gas, pull, and hope for the best. You really don't know what you're up against, and quite frankly, there's no reason not to make sure everything's in good operational order and have good maintenance procedure for the equipment that you've spent your hard-earned money on. So what I'm going to do is take this at face value. Regardless of the purpose of the equipment, we're just going to dive into this, get this up and running again in the correct fashion. Let's get started. I'll point out first off that the sludge in the bottom of the gas tank, it just does not bode well for this. It's horrific smelling, gas rot indeed. We're going to have to clean that out with kerosene. And this is going to see an oil change before the end of this project, but we'll see what we're dealing with here. Oil level looks good. Oil itself doesn't look terrible either, so that's a good sign. I'll remove the air filter from the unit, and this is a foam filter. I want to check the condition of the foam, make sure it's not turning into dust. And this foam rubber is still spongy, it's still good. If it starts flaking and you see it's rotting away, you need to replace this because this is going to destroy your carburetor in short order. This leaves us with the back cover of the filter exposing the carburetor. We'll remove this now. We can see on this cover the crank ventilation hose has cracked. A lot of these carbs, you'll find the studs that hold the cover on go through the entire carburetor to hold everything together. This is generally the case, and we will see on this one if this is also the case. I remove what's left of that hose, pull that cover off, and we can see that the stud does run through the entire length of the carburetor into the engine. Here we see the fuel line goes to the carb, and these are pretty much the same for a variety of engines. This does not differ. It's the standard setup. We could already see this thing is in a bad way. We could see all sorts of nastiness coming out of this. Looks to me like eventually the needle for the float bowl gave out and just was oozing stuff out of this carburetor, turned into varnish all over it. We'll get a closer look later. With the fuel line removed, we see what's remaining. This is the choke right here. See the choke plate. Here's the throttle connected to the mechanical governor, which is, wow, that thing is really crusty. And the associated spring. I'm going to take this gasket off first, very gently. I don't want to break any of these, right? These grommets pop out, allowing the choke free, just like that, right? And this sort of releases like that. Choke setups may vary between different types of equipment. Then this can go like this and off the rails. The way these are set up, you'll find that you cannot remove this linkage until you've disconnected the carb because of the way that it sits. I'll remove this metal backing plate first. And that plate was stuck on, it just peeled right off. We can see the gaskets are on there. I have no cause to remove them, so I'll put that plate to the side. With that, we can see how the linkage locks in, as well as the spring. So I'll remove both of them now. This spring just disconnects right from there really easily. Linkage lifts right off, the carb is disconnected. Now, here's something to think about. A lot of folks would simply consider throwing gas in the unit and running this, right? Why would you not spend the couple of minutes to remove this, clean it out properly, do proper maintenance on it, and get it going again? And we're going to begin with the disassembly of this carburetor, sitting here on the table, so that once it's disassembled, we do a complete cleaning and reassembly. But I just got to go through some of the unbelievable amount of tar. This one is just unbelievable, and I got to tell you, you can't tell on camera, this is revolting and offensive how much this one stinks. We're going to remove the drain plug for good measure. There's going to be nothing to drain, but as goes process. Drain plug, I see a rust at the end of the screw, to be expected. And on this carb, a screw down the middle, holds everything together. I'll remove that now. Lordy, that was in there. It's not looking good. Oh dear. Look at that bad boy. This is going to be a cleaning. See if we have anything salvageable in this thing. We'll extract the pin from the float. It came right out. Gently lift the float out. We'll look at that later. We have some work ahead of us. If we want to save this carb, there is a jet in here that I'm going to see if I can remove, if possible. Not worth breaking. I'm going to see if I could get it. If not, I'm going to have to clean it in place. And let me show you something. Look at the sludge. This is what builds up. It's just like tar. I'm going to take out this idle stop screw here right quick. And the idle speed will be readjusted as it's brought back in. We have a plug over here. There we go. Very carefully remove that plug. That will allow me to clean out from here. Some are metal, some are plastic like that. The takeaway is don't break it, right? So you could twist it. You could do what I did. You may in fact want to remove that plug after the outside of the carb is cleaned. I may just push it back loosely in this case, just so I don't get any more contaminants in there for this external cleaning. I've determined that this bad boy is not coming out of the carb. I'm going to take extra time to clean this jet in place. I cleaned it with carb cleaner on the outside just to get all the dirt off, to have it clean enough to bring here, to be able to demonstrate the regular carb cleaning regimen. So if it's covered with dirt and you have to clean it and use some sort of brush to get the outside, every time you spray it and clean it, get the dirt off, spray it again, then go ahead and do that. It's safe enough for me to pull this plug out on this particular carb, and this will be washed as a regular item of the carburetor, regular piece, and it does give me exposure down here into this area, which I want to make sure is not a blocked passage. No, and that sprays right out the front. Very good. Pushing the old gas out of that. There's more than one passage there, though. There's also one pointing towards the back. That's from this hole right here. That mystery solved. This one sprays this hole. So these two front passages right here connect to those two passages right there, and I have blown them out, gotten all the junk out of them. They're nice and clean. I'm going to need to get the debris out of here. I could spray carb cleaner in there, but I still need to see what they did right here. They have a needle right here, and what they do is they broke it off after they set it, right? So there's no way to go and remove this and be able to set it properly. And this is always very unfortunate, because if they're capped, you could always remove the cap and replace the cap when you're done, or drill out the copper cap if it's covered like that. But in this case, where they just cut off the needle, it does present a problem. Do you forego trying to clean that passage out, or do you try and remove it and place it back in? I have to slot a flathead into this needle. We'll see if that works. Sure enough, it did. I was able to get the needle out with no problem. Take a look at this. Now I'll be able to clean out that passage properly. There is some chunk coming out of there. Very nice. It's amazing the color that's coming off of this as this stuff drips through here, as it's breaking up. It's like brown. This main jet is still plugged. I've been testing it every now and again, and this tells me that if you tried to put gas in this carburetor and somehow think that this was going to work, you would have no chance ever of getting this thing to run. Just pulling on that pull string 1,000 times till you gave up and went to the store and bought a new appliance because you didn't take the time to take this apart. Now, because I can't remove this jet, I'm going to use my carburetor brushes. With my carburetor jet brush and some compressed air, I broke through the other side. I was able to clean that out, and now and it is unclogged. To get inside the interior here, Venturi, I'm going to put some cleaner on Q-tips and get all that junk out of there. Good old-fashioned elbow grease, what this is. Subsequent spray through should get the rest of that nice and shiny. I need all that tar and whatnot away from here. Also get this plate cleaned up. Just make sure there's nothing on there. Look, turn around the other side. This side's a horror show. I have to make sure that I spray in this direction because I don't want any of that coming back this way. Look at that, you see? That's just nasty. Let's see what we can get. Spray. Work this out in cycles till it's all gone. I've removed even more. Give a little spray from this side, let that sit for a little bit. Let that soak in. Most of that tar is now gone. We can see the Q-tip just has a little bit of dirt on it at this point. Inside this Venturi. Nice and clean. It's getting there. Hit this with a dry Q-tip, see what happens. Looking very nice now. Check this passage right quick. I don't believe I hit this one. Yep, that's down there. Okay, that's good. We have to take care of this seat for the needle. We're going to use some polish as well as a Q-tip with the cotton removed. Remove a little bit of this cotton to thin it out. Put a little polish on that right there. Let's see if that's good enough. That's going to fit. Yeah, that'll fit. Work that in there. There we go. And just work that. Spin it in the other direction as well. After several minutes, I remove it. I could see a nice shine again is returned. It'll probably look a little better once I get a Q-tip in there and remove that polish. We'll take a look. And now we could see a nice polish in there, especially notably on the bottom, right? So the polish on the side to stop the needle from sticking, but the polish on the bottom makes that seal. Look at that, as good as new in there now. Second round of Q-tip seals the deal. You can see that's just absolutely perfect. Look at that. Spray off any remaining residue from an activity, of course, with brake cleaner. I don't want any of that polish in the engine, so I just cleaned it off right quick with one remaining Q-tip. I just got to inspect these one last jets that open up. Just check these progressive jets right here that open up these 3 holes, and they're working too. This bowl is a horror show. Let's see what we can do with it. Looks like gel, like a gel and a rust. I may hit this with some steel wool or something on the inside to get this clean. I'm going to polish up this needle right quick while it's out. This one should take no time at all. And there we go, like brand new for reintroduction back into the carburetor. A little different because I have modified it, right? So, went from poorly implemented emissions controls to flathead screw. And I also know the original depth because I have cut it into the actual aluminum, as you see. I also know the depth from looking at the other side, which is also helpful. There we go, that's exactly where it was seated. Everything is exactly where it was in the original position. The plug is all cleaned. We'll pop this back in. There we go. The flat sits like that. I could then put this idle stop back in. You don't have to set it up just yet. I don't know where it's going to be set up for exactly. There you go. Where it gets hard to turn. I think it was just about there. So even a good idea to clean up the float pin and remove any varnish because that could bind the pin. And of course the end of these screws need to be cleaned too. I'm going to touch those up right quick. Including any seals that go around the screws. Get any debris off of there. Very nice. The varnish on the float is starting to release, so I'm spraying it, giving it a little agitation with the brush, and then spraying it some more. The bowl's improving too. This one is almost ready. So now I'm going to take the float and I'm going to seat it back down, putting the needle back in place. I'm going to put this through. Fits very nicely because it's nice and clean, and we should have good movement. I'm gonna push it up very gently, and I'm gonna blow through and test it, make sure it's airtight. And it does appear to be airtight. Gotten most of the junk out of the bottom of this bowl. It seems good enough to reconnect to the carburetor. As this is just a carburetor for a pressure washer, I'm going to reuse this seal down here again. I wouldn't do this for a motorcycle, obviously, but how I'm going to do this, I'm going to use a little bit of rem oil. I'm going to spray it onto the seal, and it's going to cause the seal to expand ever so slightly, right, as this dried out seal sort of reconstitutes, and it's going to provide for a better fit. Now, if it doesn't work, then obviously I'd have to replace the seal, but I'm not going to be going down the highway when this fails. It's just going to be a pressure washer leaking gasoline. It's not that important. So there we go. I've added the rem oil. It'll take a little bit to permeate, but I could already see it puffing up just a little bit, and it didn't even take long. A little bit of time to expand. When I cleaned this bowl, I also cleaned that mating surface. Looks a little dirty, but I assure you I've gotten everything off of there, right? So I placed the cover back on. Generally, the drain screw would be in a place where you could reach it, so it's forward facing or side facing. Depending on how it was taken off, you make a note of that, right? So I put that back on, and this is going to be the screw that holds everything together. These are much simpler than motorcycle carburetors, obviously. And I just pop that back on. I'm going to give it a hand tighten right now. And this is the drain screw, the screw that if you used in the first place, you wouldn't have to clean this carburetor. And I'm guilty of that, obviously. And I put that screw in. Now I'm going to tighten both of them. Let's start with the bottom one. I don't need to beat the hell out of this. Just give it a little tighten, and it's done. And then this screw, give it a little tighten, and it's done. And this is now reassembled. I'm going to start by just pushing this metal heat shield back on. Get that in a position right there. Now I'm going to take off this disgusting, nasty fuel hose right quick and inspect it. If the fuel hose is okay, I'll use it. If not, I'm going to replace it. And surprise, surprise, this hose had a filter in it, so that's something to consider too. Turns out under all that dirt, the hose is absolutely fine. It can be reintroduced back onto the unit. Now just cut away this bad piece of crank ventilation hose. There we go, that should do it. Linkage its spring back onto the carb, and then seat it back onto these studs. And right after I connect them, just slide it right back up, just like that, nice and easy. Fuel connection. Now I'll see how springy the governor is after the cleaning. Yeah, that's a lot better. I have this gasket I'm going to place back on the unit as I found it, just like that. The choke assembly, which will lock down here, and then the grommets will be reseated in position. Choke varies on whatever type of equipment you have. Choke, see the choke is working. I put on the inner cover of the air filter, like that. With that cover all secure, I'll put on the outer air filter cover and the air filter. There we go, we're all done with the carburetor. And while beyond the scope of this video, if I don't remember when I changed the oil, time to change the oil. Especially before I start this engine, since all the oil would be in the pan after sitting this long. So let's just do that. Oh, that's yummy. To the right level, new oil's filled, we're ready to go. I'm gonna put a splash of gasoline in here for testing. It turned out this tank leaked all the way through. It was bone dry. Whatever remaining residual stuff is in here will get broken up by the gasoline and burned through during our pressure washing events. That's enough gas in there to let it sit a few minutes, make sure that bowl's not leaking or overflowing. This is where we find out if all the work was worth it. We put it on choke. Got the gas in there. We'll give it a go. We'll see what happens. First pull. First pull. Runs like new. From garbage in the shed to fully functional pressure washer in about 2 hours. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. Thanks for watching. Well, that was 2 hours well spent, huh? Sure.